Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome everyone to today's Explainer. If you've ever wondered how the human body maintains its miraculous balance and exactly what goes wrong when that balance is lost, well, you are definitely in the right place. Today we're breaking down a fascinating section of Dr. Harsh Mohan's Textbook of Pathology, 7th edition. We're skipping the basics and jumping straight into what is essentially the ultimate biological true crime story, derangements of homeostasis and hemodynamics. We'll be using this foundational text as our guide to map out the wild journey from perfect physiological harmony straight into the chaotic, cascading disruptions of disease.
To get us there, we've got a roadmap. We're looking at homeostasis and normal balance, disturbances of body water, acid base and electrolytes, and lastly, hemodynamic derangements. Simple enough, right? Let's get to it.
Starting with Section 1, Homeostasis and Normal Balance, the body's foundation.
Everything starts with homeostasis. And, it sounds peaceful, but it is far from being a static state of rest. Homeostasis is a relentless, energy-consuming battle fought every second at the cellular level. It's a dynamic equilibrium where your body is just constantly adjusting to internal and external stressors. It's the active, non-stop process of survival. If you maintain this dynamic equilibrium, you thrive. But if the cellular energy runs out or the stressors become too great, the system collapses. Dr. Mohan breaks this dynamic stability down into some seriously intricate mechanics. Take the Gibbs-Donnan equilibrium, for example. It sounds intimidating, but it's basically an elegant physical law governing how the uneven distribution of large, charged particles, like big proteins inside our cells, drives the movement of water and smaller ions across our membranes. It's the silent force keeping your cells from bursting or collapsing. Throw in the ultra-tight acid-base balance regulating our blood and the microscopic pressure gradients governing how fluids perfuse our capillaries, and you have the beautifully complex picture of our normal physiological baseline. But here is the million-dollar question, right? We know the rules of this relentless cellular battle. So what happens when that delicate balance just breaks? Imagine those precise osmotic gradients suddenly reversing, or proteins leaking where they shouldn't, causing a total systemic cascade. That is exactly where we pivot from normal physiology into pathology, and we enter the very dramatic realm of derangements.
Which brings us to Section 2, Disturbances of body water. Basically, what happens when fluid levels tip? Meet the first major villain in our biological story, edema. The textbook isolates this condition right from the jump as a profound disturbance of body water. And look, edema isn't just a fancy word for swelling. Mechanistically, it happens when the outward-pushing hydrostatic pressure in our vessels completely overwhelms the inward-pulling osmotic pressure. That oncotic pull exerted by those plasma proteins we just talked about. When those Starling forces fundamentally fail, massive amounts of fluid are forcefully pushed out of the vascular space and pool in your interstitial tissues, exactly where they absolutely do not belong.
But edema is only one manifestation of fluid derangement. The text starkly contrasts two severe systemic extremes, dehydration and overhydration. And the consequences at the cellular level, they're fascinating and honestly brutal. In severe dehydration, as the extracellular space loses water, the resulting osmotic shift literally sucks water right out of your cells. They undergo crenation, shrinking and shriveling up, completely halting their normal function. On the flip side, overhydration dilutes the extracellular fluid, forcing water into the cells, leading to catastrophic cellular swelling and potential lysis. They literally burst open. Both extremes represent a fatal failure of that original homeostatic balance.
Moving right along to Section 3, acid base and electrolytes. Let's talk about the blood's chemistry.
This is where the biological tightrope gets razor thin. We're talking about acid-base imbalance. Our bodies demand a highly specific arterial pH window, precisely 7.35 to 7.45. If that number drops to 7.2 or pushes to 7.6, the fallout is instant. The actual physical shapes of your proteins begin to alter, and your critical metabolic enzymes just clock out and stop functioning. It's a stark, scientific reminder that we are basically driven by highly sensitive chemical reactions, and when that pH strays beyond that tiny margin, biological harmony crashes into systemic failure.
And that leads us to our final stop, Section 4, hemodynamic derangements. Think of this as the body's internal highway system. Dr. Mohan perfectly categorizes these circulatory failures into two distinct camps. You've got profound disturbances in the sheer volume of circulating blood, and then you have circulatory disturbances of an obstructive nature, two entirely different mechanisms of failure for our internal vasculature. Let's lock in the clinical reality of these two categories. Volume disturbances are fundamentally about a capacity mismatch. Think of a rapid, severe hemorrhage. Suddenly, you have way too little blood volume to maintain systemic pressure, sending your organs straight into hypovolemic shock. Obstructive disturbances, though, those act like catastrophic physical roadblocks. The total blood volume might be totally fine, but an embolus, say a blood clot that broke loose, travels through the system until it irreversibly wedges right into a pulmonary artery. Traffic stopped. Both of these derangements, whether it's a lack of volume or an immovable blockage, completely halt the delivery of life-saving oxygen to your tissues, leading to rapid cell death.
So we've traveled all the way from the relentless, energy-consuming perfection of normal homeostasis straight through to the chaotic breakdowns of hydrostatic edema, terrifying acid-base imbalances, and massive vascular roadblocks. It is a wildly high-stakes ride happening inside of us every single second. So I'll leave you with this thought to ponder. Knowing how easily the scales can tip, from a tiny, microscopic shift in your blood's pH to a sudden physical block in your circulation, just how resilient is your own internal tightrope today? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep wondering, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.